It's Vibe Check with Dwoofy and a couple of guests that are a long time coming. I was saying before we hopped on the call, it felt weird to start with you guys because it just seemed too on point. But you guys have some really interesting stuff coming up, and I think it's a great time to speak with what I would call legendary Adrian. Knowledge professor, and I expected that. LOL, Adrian's face. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I'm so excited. I think a lot of people probably know you guys by well, especially people who watch my live streams. But you know, for my money and why I think it's exciting to have you guys here, you have been very early to the network. You are working on a very interesting project that is not, deep in the technical weeds, so to speak. I think it's something that pretty much everyone who joins the network can enjoy or grab onto a piece of and sort of get involved with and interested in. So I really appreciate you guys coming on. Adrian, if you want to start just a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, but thanks for having us. Dwoofy, I just appreciate what you're doing too.
Yeah. Oh, totally. We're starting off on such a sweet note.
Yeah.
After fighting about
the Christian rap part of the show. Yes.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I'm being nice because Dwoofy and I got in a fight online last night, and I feel like I owned him, and I need to be nice because you're probably not feeling great right now.
We can pull up the results if you need to, Adrian.
But let's put that aside. So what did you want me to do? Say hi?
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself, maybe within the GM Farcaster context, for people who may even know you just as like the Fox. What are you doing?
Yes.
And what are you doing with GM Farcaster?
I am the Red Fox of Farcaster, not to be confused with a wallet that also is an orange fox. Nounish Prof and I do GM Farcaster. It is a live stream news show about Farcaster, and it is the weirdest path that these lives that we ended up on.
Yeah.
I have no idea how I ended up here. I was just thinking about this. I pivoted from software engineering.
It's that copy pasta of I don't know how I got here. If any federal agents are listening, I was hatted by a third party. I don't know where I am.
I was conned. Prof conned me into doing some weird show. I was just joining. I found Farcaster because I was super crypto curious and I was very active. I've gotten tons of value from Twitter over the years. I'm a better person because of Twitter. I'm smarter. I've learned so much. I've met people. Twitter changed my life. And I was exploring kind of crypto worlds and I like the idea of decentralized social because I think the world is going to be better with censorship resistant decentralized protocols. So I jumped into Farcaster 2 years ago, and it just it was from day one immediately just kind of found my people. And that was quite some time ago. Prof and I met at FarCon, the beta in Boston. Dwoofy met you there too.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, we were let's start just we'll just do a live show about Farcaster, and we've done over 150 episodes, and it's now the number one thing in our lives.
I love that.
Accurate.
Yeah, it was great. I met both of you guys for the first time at FarCon the Beta. I call it FarCon 1, but FarCon the Beta in Boston was. I always get the impression that I don't know, they talk about all these other Web 2 companies, oh, you had to be, there was only 30 people in the room when Jeff Bezos announced AWS. It's I was in the room, finally. I was in the room. I've been waiting my whole life to be in that room. I was in it, and I was there with you guys.
That's so funny that you say that because I had that exact feeling when I was there.
Yes.
And I said that right after and wrote a little bit about it. But it was that I think I used the words, I was in the Google dorm room. Yeah. Is what I felt like. I'm that's what it felt like because it was such a small group, but the brain power was insane.
Yeah.
And it was just how did I get here? Don't tell anyone because I don't think I'm supposed to be in this room.
Don't tell anyone who's been a running theme for most of my guests. They're no one really knows how we got here, but I suppose that's the beauty of it. Thanks for that, Adrian.
Exactly.
Prof, if you want to give a similar sort of breakdown just to set the stage for what we're going to talk about later.
So I kind of came into Farcaster through the Nouns community, and hopefully you guys are seeing me. I think I might be frozen. Oh, there we go. So it was a little different, and DWR is also owns a Noun, And so he had reached out and said, hey, anybody from Nouns community, if you want to join Farcaster, here's an invite. And I jumped on. That was like October 2022, and slowly kind of got a little bit more involved, but really didn't dive in head first until FarCon, the beta in Boston. And that's when it all kind of clicked for me. And I'd encourage anybody who hasn't been to an IRL meetup, no matter how small, like go. If there's one near you, go, because just the folks that you meet that are in this ecosystem right now are really amazing. So that's where I met Adrian. And I had this thought then that I was like, I kind of want to start streaming. This might be a good way for me to contribute to this ecosystem, is to do a morning show about Farcaster, which is like really insane. If you think about it, because when we started, there was less than 1,000 daily active users at the time. So there was not a ton of content. And that's why we started as 21 minutes of Farcaster news to start your day, because I was like, okay, we definitely want to do less than half hour. And I'm like, I don't even know how much content there might be, maybe 20 minutes. So that's why we kind of kept it simple and short, so that we could, see if we had enough, like, to even create. And we've never had a problem. Not once have I been like, there's nothing to talk about today. Usually I'll go, oh, there's not much, and we still run long, like every time. So it's grown as the network has grown, and it's been really fun. And probably the best part of it is getting to work with Adrian, and that friendship and business partnership that's grown over the past year has been nothing I've experienced in my life. So it's been amazing. And it's really like having the best co-founder who just reads your mind all the time. It's phenomenal. So I recommend getting yourself an Adrian, if you can find one. Don't take mine. She's mine.
I'm not,
you get
I'm
your
not
own
for everyone.
I'm
not available. Yeah.
Get your own, Adrian.
Yeah, no, you guys
You
have become quite the pair for sure. One of my favorite pieces of lore that's completely useless that you guys said it started at 21 minutes, because that's the average time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. And I can confirm I've never not finished my cup of coffee watching GM Farcaster. There's never been I was like, oh, look, I've got coffee left.
I've got coffee left.
Yeah.
That's how we know. That's when we know we don't have anything to talk about, if you have coffee left.
Right, exactly. It's never happened. Yeah. But I think you guys touched on something very important there that I think is really interesting, particularly from like a vibes, growth, reach sort of stance, where Farcaster is really blowing up. I think that's fair to say. I don't think anyone's claiming PMF yet, especially not Merkle or Dan. But the growth is extremely real and something that we haven't seen, I would say, pretty much anywhere in this sort of like social space since, I don't know, Snapchat, something like that, maybe, right? TikTok, probably. And even those are much older than maybe some of us remember. So I think there's an interesting point here about being early, sort of sensing that magic in the room, and IRL events can definitely help with that. We'll tap into that a little bit later. But I feel like you guys have quite a bit of resilience in terms of like believing in things sort of deep down at your core, that like this is a good thing to do. This is something we enjoy doing. This is something that's valuable. And while we can talk about those things ephemerally all the time, and it's like always like, oh, the we're early meme, you guys really stuck with it. And like you have an incredible number of episodes, an incredible amount of content out there right now because of it, which I think just, I think it's admirable, one, but also I think there's some learnings there to be done. So I'd love to hear, we'll start with you, Adrian, just sort of what it was like building in the early days. Like, what did that feel like when there was only 1,000 DAO, and let's be honest, not all of them Q.
No, they were all Q.
There were 1,000 Q.
Yeah,
Q. There was a lot of Q at that time.
Okay, if you guys say so, we'll just agree to disagree on that one unless you want to do another poll.
Wow. So, objectively, I should be telling you it's awful. Like there were just so many technical challenges in the early days.
So bad.
From like streams not working, recordings not working. I mean, half the time we were like in the green room, like, is this live? Is this live? Are we on yet? Hello? Is anyone there?
Sure.
Internet connect, like we glitch out there. It was messy. And yet I didn't care at all because there's no expectation. Like there's no expectation. We were doing it with our friends, like our friends were in the audience, having the live chat. If we were like, oh, we're serious journalists doing a Farcaster news show and we're going to record content, I don't know if we would have made it, right? But it was it was live, low stakes, even though we put everything on chain and our ridiculousness will be,
preserved forever,
living there forever. But it was like low stakes. It was just fun. It was fun. And it didn't bother me. Also, Prof was kind of in charge of the OBS stuff in the background. So I was like, sure, I'll just show up. Me. I didn't care.
Oh, technical glitch. All Prof's fault.
Totally. But not to discount the audience was so small, but it was so much more fun. It was just fun. And it was friends in the audience and people are chatting. Like it was nothing but fun. There was like no expectation, no pressure. So I kind of felt like it was like almost in some ways easier in the beginning because there was no expectations.
I think the expectation thing is great. I think I was talking with Coach Cole about this. I get a little bit cranky when there's some sort of entitlement to reach or entitlement. And it's like, just if you have fun and like release those expectations, you're actually going to get much better is sort of my thesis, or at least that's what I've been taking with my podcast. And even today we had a watch party. We had a couple of weeks break. And there is some random people who I had just started talking to last week on Farcaster. And they were like, you should do this all the time. I'm like, oh, you are really new to my content because I swear I've only been gone for a couple of weeks. I did 9 episodes of this in a row. And I was pretty proud of it. And it's like, don't worry, it's coming back. And like, if you keep those like friendly expectations and have fun with it, I think it's much easier to get through some of those tough times because it doesn't weigh so heavily on you, right? Prof, any thoughts as the OBS lead or otherwise?
Yeah, I think that the expectation thing is huge. Like you have to set the expectations for whoever's joining you in this audience too. And like so grateful for, especially very early on, for people who show up, but even now, like if you're showing up live and you're participating and you're chatting with us, it adds a tremendous amount of value. Like I can't stress that enough because it keeps us going. Where I could literally, I think there was one show I did by myself, and I think the co-host, whoever was supposed to co-host with me, didn't show. Something happened, and it was fine because I had content to bop off of, but I also had the chat, so it wasn't like I was really alone, and that was really helpful. So setting the expectation for your audience too, I think, was a really smart move to keep it very short in the beginning as well, and let people just sort of grow with us. And that's been a lot of fun. So that's one thing. But also you said very early on, Adrian, like we're free to fail, and safe to fail. That's what it was. Safe to fail. So that also helped to release a little pressure of like, if this totally fails, if we do this for a couple of months and we're like, nah, we're out, it's fine. And that's kind of how we've started. We posed it at the beginning, was like, this is an experiment. We're going to try this. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to iterate as we go. And then I always refer to the Gary Tan cast when he did an AMA. So Gary Tan's the current CEO of Y Combinator. He did an AMA on Farcaster almost a year ago, probably. Must be getting close. And in that, he talked about doing the shitty version every day, like doing the shitty version, but consistently, and then basically iterating on that. And so we always refer to, we're still doing the shitty version. But early on, it was really shitty at times. It was really bad. It was not polished content of any sort. Somebody called our production polished like last week, and we were both just laughing hysterically because like, what? How far we've come that anyone would even remotely say that. So I think that doing it consistently, setting expectations that aren't crazy, that are reasonable for you, as well as people who are watching, joining, whatever it is that you're doing, I think is really important. And I think that is one thing we did really well. and then just continue to grow, and just keep iterating and finding what works and what doesn't, and working on that and just improving.
Yeah, a lot of these OODA loops and product things that we talk about actually really work well everywhere. I know Les talks a lot about how terrible his casting was in the beginning. He's like, I'm just going to use it as my diary and see what happens. He looks back at it. He's like, oh, this is terrible. But I think a lot of us loved it as well.
Yeah, I loved Les, early Les.
Yeah.
Early Les.
Yeah, me too.
We're all on our own personal journeys, and we all look back at our own stuff most critically.
I mean, call back to your vibe check with Coach Cole.
Yeah.
And he talked about, he gave that, he gave a story about these interviewers that came in, or people who were being interviewed, and one was like perfect, right? There was a group that was perfect, and then there was a group that really effed up and made all these mistakes and did something. And the ones that make the mistakes are the ones that get hired because they seem more authentic and human. And it just, we keep learning this lesson again and again, and we don't want to believe it because it's like, it's fine for you to be human, but I need to be perfect.
Right.
Like,
absolutely. And that's another, setting the correct expectations or intentions, right? Like, don't set out to be perfect, but if you set out with the intention of like doing the shitty thing, if you set out the intention of, I'm going to improve, I'm going to get better, but doing the thing is absolutely it. And on that note, I try a lot on these podcasts recently to speak to like new members of the Farcaster group, whatever that means to whoever might be listening. Because how do I put this? The honest truth is that as networks grow, especially hockey stick, right, there's always, ironically, more new people than old people. So if you kind of keep talking about the same things, if they're framed in the right way, to help out people who are new to the network. And I think there's a lot of folks out there who are either looking for followers or looking for their cozy corner. They're coming here searching for something. And Profi touched upon something really great about the chatting element. And this is, I think you guys are one of the most the best examples that I often give, but really getting involved more than just tweeting or the equivalent of casting, which we're so used to in like social media of olden days. Let's call it. There's so much more to do here, right? You can tune into a stream, you can buy art, you can do a million different things. Now, if you want to, or not, if you just wanted to tell me, I try to give concrete examples of things people can do to get involved, whether that's like stuff that you just like, or if there's anything specific that people can do to get involved with GM Farcaster. What are you working on that, like, especially new people who are joining the network and are looking to do more than just cast it to the void? What are your recommendations? What's your favorites?
I think the biggest thing is if you can join live, because it's not necessarily about us, but you're going to meet other people in that chat. And we've seen this a million times where people have gotten connected, they've become friends, they then interact more elsewhere on the network by chatting on that platform. So whether that's, Unlonely or one of our other, like YouTube, can be anywhere. But it's making those connections, I think, are really important. And I know the other thing I mentioned before is if you can get to an IRL event, great. That's super helpful. There's a lot of like Farhouse happening too, or Tavern happening right now. So those are audio, like Twitter Spaces or like Clubhouse. And that's another great place to tap in and jump in and not only listen, but, throw your hand up if you got something to add to the conversation, and jump in, and don't be afraid of that, because, if you have something to add, like, definitely, take the chance, because it's a friendly group. And there's a lot of that happening right now. And that's the best thing I can say, as well as just replying to cast. If you see something that's interesting, you have again, same kind of concept, you have something to add to the conversation, do it. Because that's how you meet people and interact, and that's how they get to know you as well. So I think those are probably the best things that I could think of in terms of getting connected. That doesn't cost you anything, right? It doesn't, it just costs you a little bit of time. But there's no I could give you a few other ways to get involved with GM Farcaster, but those are going to be like next step, our hyper sub, or, jumping on as a sponsor or something like that, or, raising your hand up and saying, hey, I'd love to come on and talk about my project. But that's sort of like step two. First one is just like get to know other folks within the network. And I think that's probably one of the biggest values that we've been able to offer. And also something that I didn't anticipate. And and also the other thing I didn't anticipate was people telling us that helped them get connected when they were very early on. And I saw that from Alina Ferry is a great example. She's mentioned it a couple times. There's a few other folks who've been like, this is what helped me get connected here, was just hanging out in the chat and listening to the show and just being a part of. So I think that's a great way to approach it for sure, especially if you're new.
Yeah, I'm the revenue guy, so I will say you should definitely go subscribe to the Hypersub. I think I understand that not everyone's rolling into a generational.
Get to know us first, though. That's what I meant. If you're new,
I'm out here doing the selling, but you're totally right. I met Lamb Chop like on the cast, and I was following her, and then she has some very hot takes on a tavern, and I was like, I got to get this girl on. So she's my next guest. And that's,
I heard her too on tavern, and that's where I kind of got to know. Like, she was in my feed a little bit, but when I heard her on tavern, I was like, oh, okay. I just feel like I know her a little bit better now, and I think there's all those ways in which you get to know and connect a little bit more on a network, and I think all of these pieces really help. For sure. And I'm looking forward to Lamb Chop's vibe check. I can't wait.
Yeah, there's a lot of laughter in that one. It's definitely, she found Farcast with her TikTok of all things. So
wow.
Yeah. I don't think it was Ted actually, but
that's weird.
Yeah. So I just think another example of the network proliferating. But just to make sure we talk about the very important things as well. You guys are building a Farcaster media, not
network.
Network.
Empire?
Not Empire. Possibly Empire. If I have anything to do with it, it'll be
Let's
an
start
Empire.
with network.
Yeah. Against your own wishes, I'm going to do my best to make it an Empire. And Adrian, I wanted to hear a little bit from you on, well, one, what that vision is, maybe the genesis of, why you guys thought this was a good idea, how it's going now, the future, and then, of course, being, again, the growthy BD guy, any call outs specifically for people that want to get involved and think that it's interesting and might have some sort of skill set to add.
Yeah. So when we started the show, we didn't really, it wasn't like, oh, there's a massive business opportunity, let's go after it. It was like, we love Farcaster. We want to talk about it. We like each other. Let's get on a stream. And as we started doing it, we had a suspicion maybe there's something we could do and maybe we could grow it. But as we started streaming, I think after a few months, and I think we would have chats and say, listen, I think there's a there. And there's a need for Farcaster media, Farcaster native media. Like, you have people who are, even though the network was super small, you just have people who are hungry for good content and content about Farcaster. Even it was or related to Farcaster, and people not wanting to leave Farcaster. It was like, do we say Farcaster enough? Can we, it was like, It's like Farcaster people want to listen to Farcaster media. And so I think it was in January, Prof, where we were like, let's go in. Let's kind of clear. So how are we going to go from here and clear other things off our plate so we can really focus on building GM Farcaster? And one of the things we talked about was, do we want to build a show, or do we want to build a business on it? Like, is it the,
who else asked us that question? So we actually had a chat with Dan, and when we were thinking about this, and he asked us that exact question, because he was like, do you want to just build a show or do you want to build a business? And we both said business. And he's like, oh, okay. And I think we surprised him with that answer, because I think if we had said show, his advice might have sent us in a different direction. And
right, it was like,
that
yes,
might have
we are
been,
doing we're creating ended up on Turpentine. It was like, and I'm interested in I've always been interested in creating things, creating business. And so that was always interesting. And one of the things we're doing at GM Farcaster is exploring different types of revenue streams as well. So we have our hyper subs, and there's ways to monetize that way. We have different levels of sponsorship, corporate sponsorships, and all of that. We're doing stuff with educational content. So that's just super interesting as well. But the other thing is, once we've figured this out for GM Farcaster, we're doing like our show is 3 hours a week, less than, or, an hour and a half a week. There's still such a demand and there's so many other people creating content.
Yeah.
So we have a vision for doing GM Farcaster Network, which is really a network of Farcaster creators, Farcaster native media, where for people, and this is for people who may not want to build a business, but really want to focus on the content, to work with us where we can build a 24 hours, like a cable news network. Imagine of nonstop, infinite Farcaster content where creators have to show up, do their thing, and then leverage the network effect where we can then, from a business perspective, have the relationships with sponsors, bring in funding, bring in revenue, help with audience, cross promote across shows, create different IRL events, like really create larger community. And then that way creators can get paid without having to do all of the complications of actually running a business.
Yeah, I feel that deeply as someone who would have given a very different answer to Dan if he asked me about my podcast. I literally just I got sort of down on the vibes and looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, but you have to change it. You're the one if you don't like what's going on. And that was the genesis of the podcast and how we all got started. But I'm very happy to be, I would say, an early participant in the GM Farcaster
You
network.
are, yeah, you're
OG?
one of our first.
Maybe OG?
OG.
I've been using Elder recently.
Elder. Ooh, I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
Fine, whatever.
we need another word.
You're talking to two elders,
We don't like that.
It's all good. I think it's all in jest. As long as I don't call you guys Sarah, I'm probably fine.
It's really, I'm excited to start to grow this network, and we had plans to do it more earlier, and then other things kind of slowed us down a little bit, but we're getting there. So we're slowly putting together this network. There's a lot of pieces that are going into it. And then as we're bringing in sponsors, we're taking portions of that and going to be putting it towards those creators. So we're working on all that sort of flow through and getting there. But we're excited to keep it growing. And also just from a perspective of okay, we have this resource like StreamYard. Can we share it with other creators? And as long as it, doesn't interfere with what we're doing, why not? Instead of, making everybody have their own, tools and things like that. So trying to find different ways that we can support other Farcaster media, I think is really important. And I'm glad we've been able to do so far. And I'm just looking forward to being able to do more. And we're getting there. We're getting very close to doing a lot of the things that we want to do.
and I think
getting
we're both,
there.
Yeah. And we obviously love doing our show. And I think though we're both of the belief that the more content that's created, it only increases the overall minutes available for anyone to watch and
Right.
audience. And it's it's a very, very much a positive sum. It's there's just not enough. And it's whether or not Farcaster creators decide to join a GM Farcaster network or go off on their own, it doesn't really matter. It's
Right.
just the more Farcaster content and kind of Farcaster native media that is being built, the better for the network. The network
Absolutely.
isn't the Farcaster protocol, not the GM Farcaster media empire.
Exactly.
that we're
Not the
building.
Empire.
Media empire.
Although they are related.
Yeah, they are related.
Yeah,
I do
love
think
it.
one other note on that too is it's really it took me a while to get to a point where I have an abundance mindset. It took a long time, honestly. And it happened over the course of the past probably 8 years. And it comes and goes. There have been times when I lose my abundance mindset and I get a little it's like fear takes over kind of thing. So this is another way for me to reset that and make sure I'm remembering that, it doesn't have to be zero sum. It doesn't have to be PvP. It doesn't have to be you lose so I can win. It's, it's not a fake wag me, toxic positivity thing. It's a true, I honestly believe that if, this whole thing rises, we all go up. Right. And I think about that with the whole entire network, not just media, but in particular media, because that's the one area where I feel like we could contribute the most. And that was the place where we could dive in. We're not going to be creating a client of our own. You know, we don't have well, she might. I don't have the dev chops for that sort of thing. So it's like finding the thing that you can do well and contribute, and then hopefully everyone doing that in their own way helps grow this entire protocol and get it to a place where, you know, everybody's just winning. Are you winning, son? Yes, we all are.
I love that. I think that's quite the bombshell to get close to wrapping this up on, to like, no matter who you are or what you're doing, like do the thing you love, do the thing that you're interested in, do the shitty version if you have to. It usually will be if it's something new, and sort of keep going. And then, you know, everything is in abundance, and it'll all come to us. But before we fully wrap it up, as the sort of CTA bow on the episode, hypothetically, someone out there is a creator of, I assume, any sort, but if there's something specific you're looking for, let me know. Nanish, are you looking for anything particular? If yes or no? And
we're
also,
looking,
what can people do to get involved with GM Farcaster Network if they want to be part of the empire?
So if you are a creator and you're creating content that relates to Farcaster, definitely make sure you're on our radar. We're going to be reaching out to more creators. Right now, we're kind of doing it in a small way, kind of a test group as we're growing, but we're gonna start to expand that. So the big thing for me is like, you know, we're not at a point where we're going to be producing shows for other people. We can provide some tools and some support, but we're not at that point yet. So it's really like people who are independently going to sort of run with it, do their own thing, let us help you and amplify. So that's really what we're looking for, is like, what are you out there doing already, or something you want to do? We can give you a little advice on how to get started, but it's really going to come down to you taking your own initiative, and then us hopefully supporting you and amplifying your journey. So that's kind of what I'd say. Adrian, did I leave anything out?
You said it beautifully. You said it all.
And and in terms of supporting us, like I said, jump in the chat, join us. We have a 24-hour craziness we're going to do on Friday the 13th to celebrate our 1-year anniversary. Like, no matter where you are in the world, there's going to be something you can tap into. So,
and this will be a part of that, as far as I know.
This will be part of that.
Nearing there. So
exactly.
I'm very much looking forward to catching as much of that as I possibly can. Probably some of it with coffee, some with another type of beverage. But I'll be around.
We'll be there all night. So go ahead.
For your AM, PM beverages.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would just echo that, like, just so yes, for the creators, come find us, but also anyone on Farcaster, if you are watching GM Farcaster, we would love to hear feedback. So just how are we doing? But also, like, it is a very active, like, a active community. So lean in, post in GM Farcaster channel, let us know. You just say hi and jump in. We've got group chats and stuff because we like the direct connection.
And definitely tell us if something spoke to you or you disagreed with something we said. Either way, like, hit us up. Yeah, jump in the channel. Give us your comments. We love that. And if they're happy and positive, we call them castimonials, and we usually save them. So there you go.
That's it. That's how you get featured. That's how you get your secret power badge. I like to give out the casual reminder, especially to newer folk. Like I said, I was talking about, it's like, even if you don't have a sort of Farcaster expertise, I won't speak for you guys. You can either nod your heads in agreement or tell me I'm crazy, but sometimes I appreciate that feedback even more because I get so lost in the context of, like, my friends who have been here for a while. It's a really good reminder for me to know that, like, there are new people to the network. They have incredible things to add, but expanding that bubble is definitely one of the ways we get to abundance. So that's it. Like I always say on these podcasts, I try to be cognizant of everyone's time, yours and the audience included, but thank you guys both so much for coming on. It really was a long time coming. It was as fun as I expected it to be. And I always have very high expectations of both of you. So I'm very glad that you guys are doing what you're doing. It makes me happy. It gives me a platform, and I just couldn't be more grateful. So thank you to you both.
Well, thank you for everything you're creating because I enjoy your content. Like, I love the conversations you've been having with the founders. It's been really fun. I've been loving doing the watch party and having that interaction. So, if you are watching Dwoofy's Vibe Check, definitely jump in the chat. That's another opportunity. Connect with him, connect with everybody who's in there watching the pod, and sort of add your own take on it. So, yeah, love it.
Well,
all right.
Gian. That's
Gian.
been a Vibe Check. See you guys later.